6 months ago, many of my constituents in Ohio opened their morning papers to read the shocking news that law enforcement had discovered a human trafficking ring operating in Marion, Ohio, a small town about 50 miles north of Columbus, Ohio. 6 defendants were charged with enslaving multiple victims, including more than 6 migrant children from Guatemala.
These tragedies, really. And I would first say that, the first proximate cause.
It's intolerable that human trafficking, really modern-day slavery, could occur in our own backyard in the 21st century. But it does. What makes this Marion case even more alarming is that a U.S. government agency was actually responsible for delivering some of the victims into the hands of the abusers. Do you swear the testimony you will give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Our conclusion is that the Department of Health and Human Services process for placing unaccompanied children suffers from serious systemic failures. The horrible trafficking crime that occurred in Marion, Ohio, could likely have been prevented if HHS had adopted common sense measures for screening sponsors and checking in on the well-being of at-risk children. Protections that are standard, by the way, standard in foster care systems run by all the states, including Ohio. Testify, you didn't do an opening statement, at least answer the question.
I find the situation in front of us today unacceptable, and I am disgusted and angry.
I've had multiple conversations about trying to identify what our authority is and what else we can be doing. What we're talking about today is our understanding of our authority under the law. If the committee or other members of Congress want to work to change the law or to clarify our authority.
Well, I need your lawyers to get me in writing, and I would like it within a week, what it is in the law that prevents you from doing a home visit when a Category 3 unaccompanied minor does not show up for their hearing. What keeps you from doing a home visit? I want to know in the law what keeps you from doing that.
We will follow up and ask that question to our lawyers.
Thanks, Chairman Caskell. Of course, it's much worse than that because you have kids who actually told HHS that this sponsor was not a family friend. It was someone to get me out of HHS custody. We have that information now from you all. We even have a situation where somebody said, as soon as I got to the airport, HHS bought my plane ticket. The so-called sponsor took off and put me in the hands of other people. They've told you that. So the situation Senator Caskell talks about, of course, but it's even plainer than that. And obviously you have a responsibility here. I mean, you're not going to be able to say that there's not adequate legal basis.
Nothing breaks my heart more than the notion that these parents and their children facing unspeakable problems in their home countries took a risk that every parent in this room can't even imagine taking. They said, yeah, take my child. I want this child out of this country because I love this child so much. And they believed America was someplace that they would be safe and maybe have a future. And we have 2 federal agencies that have abdicated their responsibility for the welfare of these children.
Already says that. Have you read the Inspector General's report on this? It dates back to 2008.
I want to be clear that we view the Marion, Ohio labor trafficking case as a deeply dismaying event. Child safety is a priority for us. We are committed to continuing to make revisions to strengthen our policies, to learn all that we can from this and our ongoing experiences in operating the program. As I explained in my written testimony, I can't discuss the specific details of the Children in Ohio case due to the ongoing criminal investigation, but we'll continue to assist the subcommittee in its work.
What's the most important thing you're going to do after this hearing?
Did you know that hundreds of thousands of migrant children have crossed the US border? Did you know that the United States government has spent billions of taxpayer dollars to place these vulnerable children with sponsors throughout the United States? Did you know that some of these sponsors are criminals who traffic these migrant children for labor and for sex? My name is Tara Rodas. I've been a federal employee for almost 20 years. In March of 2021, I volunteered to help the Department of Health and Human Services to place these vulnerable migrant children with sponsors in the United States. I believe children were sponsored by family members, and I thought the HHS Unaccompanied Children program was a family reunification program. What I learned is shocking. In May of 2021, I was deployed to the Pomona Fairplex Emergency Intake Site in Pomona, California. I'm a teacher by trade, so I thought I would be helping children learn English and do puzzles and play games and help the children feel safe after their long, hard journey to the border. And in the beginning, that's just what I did. I colored, I did puzzles, I escorted children to meals, to doctor's appointments, and to meet with their case manager. Anything that came up, I volunteered to do. It was rewarding work because I wanted to help the children. But at the end of May, an urgent call for help went out to the volunteers. 10 people were needed immediately to help with case management. As always, I volunteered. I started in case management on May 24th. By mid-June, the federal case management team discovered suspicious sponsor activity. Sponsors were sponsoring at multiple addresses and receiving children from multiple sites. Then my team discovered there were apartment buildings with 30 and 40 unaccompanied children. There was one place in Houston, Texas, where there were more than 300 children in a few square miles. I learned that some of the sponsors were not even related to their children. Then someone emailed me the 2016 Senate report that outlined how children were trafficked through the program. They had evidence all the way back to 2016. I felt sick. It was hard to accept that the HHS Unaccompanied Children program is government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking. I came to help the children, not to send them to criminals and traffickers who could harm them. Our team learned how to report cases of suspected trafficking to the Office of Trafficking in Persons, and we helped the case managers to properly report cases so that children could be placed into long-term care and not be placed with criminals. But if you can imagine, it got worse.
¿Quién te patrocinó a
La
ti?
tía, pero me corrió en la casa.
Mira,
No, de porque ella me ofrecía, y a mí no me gustaba eso.
¿te ofrecía qué?
Me ofrecía con los hombres.
Y después te saliste porque tuviste que pagar tu deuda, ¿no? Pero ¿de qué hora a qué hora trabajas?
A las 4 me entra y sale a las 2 de la mañana.
At the end of August, a DHS whistleblower came forward to Project Veritas with evidence of bad actors in gangs and transnational criminal organizations were sponsoring children. And these bad actors were involved in sex trafficking. I spread the word on the site. In just a few weeks, we found the first case of a sponsor with confirmed TCO affiliation. And this sponsor was attempting to simultaneously sponsor 2 children, one from the Fort Bliss Emergency Intake Site in Texas, and one from our site in Pomona, California. Sadly, this wasn't very well received by people on the site. And after much consideration, I made the decision to reach out to a contact at the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General. This led to conversations with HHS Office of Inspector General. Now, these are what's called protected disclosures, meaning I can't be retaliated against for seeing something and saying something. But HHS found out and they retaliated against me. In less than 2 weeks, I was taken off the TCO case, falsely accused of wrongdoing. I was told I was going to be investigated. I was escorted off the site by security. My badge was taken. I have to tell you, I was terrified. And I wanted to do everything I could to protect the children. So I spoke with investigators when I got home and I tried to connect with the DH whistleblower. through Project Veritas. Now, Project Veritas had received lots of tips that children were being trafficked through the program, and they said they could help. They actually put boots on the ground and started knocking on doors where there was suspicious sponsor activity. What they
¿Y de ahí alguien voló contigo en el avión?
Sí, viajamos un día. Salí a las 6 allá.
¿Por avión?
Por avión.
¿Y te trajeron? ¿Dos personas te trajeron?
Sí, 2 personas. Es que cada uno salimos como 7 y son como 14 señores.
Entonces, 2 personas por cada niño.
Sí, 2 personas. Así fue, lo vinieron. Ayer me entregaron, son 2 personas.
¿Y dónde lo entregaron a usted?
En Miami.
¿Usted pagó el viaje de él en el avión?
Yo pagué. No, del avión no. Ellos lo traen.
De Miami, de Pecos a Miami, usted no pagó.
Ajá, el gobierno lo paga.
¿Cuántos años tienes? ¿Tú no sabes? No. ¿No sabes cuándo naciste? No.
What they heard from the children is absolutely heartbreaking. A 16-year-old girl is being pimped out by a sponsor who claims she's the child's aunt. The child says she's never met this woman who's pimping her out. She had to run away. A 15-year-old girl, she had to quit school to work in a restaurant from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. to pay her debt to the cartel. In January of this year, 50 migrant children were found working graveyard shifts in slaughterhouses. Some of these children were middle schoolers. As hard as it is to see, we are witnessing government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking. Be aware, child trafficking is real, and we all need to be concerned about it. We should call our congressmen, we should get involved. We should ask, where are the children? Where are the unaccompanied children? As hard as it is to accept, we are witnessing government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking. Your tax dollars are being used to transport the children from the border to sites around the country. Then your tax dollars are being used to ship the children from those sites to sponsors throughout the country. Some of the sponsors are criminals, some are labor traffickers, and some are sex traffickers. As hard as it is to believe, it's happening right now. If you see something, say something. We must stand up and protect all children from trafficking.